know, like I'm staunchly with the word fat, like I'm totally pro.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I get asked that a lot not all plus size women own that word.
Yeah.
And I've actually been criticized for not calling padded kink fat and for choosing a non-fat word. And so using padded, a lot of people were like, oh, well, did you skirt that name? And I was like, no, it's just I wanted something that was a little bit more of a brand. Yeah. But I'm okay with calling myself fat. I think it's very important to claim that word because then people can't use it against us in a derogatory way.
Yeah, it's empowering.
Yeah.
Your video is pixelating just a little bit. Just wanted to let you know.
I wonder why.
Bit. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, but I'll keep going because it'll write itself. Oh, there we go. So like, what's your experiences? What have your experience been being, BBW in the industry and sort of claiming that niche or?
Yeah. It depends on the community. In what's considered the BBW community, I have people who tell me I'm not BBW because I'm not a supersized girl. But when you talk to like the mainstream companies, they definitely see me as a plus size performer, and so then they don't hire me. When I do get hired for things, they're always going to be like plus size or BBW or chubby or fat or whatever. I did get hired once for a hairy film because I hadn't been working for a while, so I just kind of let it go. So people were like, "Oh, you have hair," and I was like, "Yes, but it took me 4 months because I'm Asian and I don't grow a lot of hair." So, but if you can work with that, I can work with that too. And that was probably one of my very few non-BBW titles. I've also done a movie for Wicked, which is coming out hopefully later this year, if not early next year. But it's a non-sexual, and I play Asa Akira's mom. And I got hired mainly because I speak Japanese, not because I'm plus size or non-plus size. So yeah, as far as the community is concerned, it depends on who you're talking to as to how accepted I am. As far as being Asian, I'm definitely plus size. I associate myself with being a plus size performer. I know that the majority of my fans consider me a plus size performer, and so yeah, And I have a lot of couples fans.
You have a lot of what?
I have a lot of fans who are couples.
Couples. Oh, I totally
because
that, yeah.
a lot of the guys are like, yeah, you're one of the approved porn genres in our home because my wife is built like you or my girlfriend's built like you, and so the girls don't feel like they're having to compete with what they think is their boyfriend or their husband's fantasy. Yeah. They're like, oh, okay, so she's a really pretty girl. She's very sexy, and she's doing sexy things, but she's not something that I can't achieve.
Yeah.
She's something that I am okay with because I am built similarly, and she seems very confident, and she seems like she's having a good time. So I guess I should too. Yeah. And knowing that makes me really happy.
That's awesome. Yeah, it like turns into this like very empowering thing for the women that are watching, and gives them, like almost like a voice where they weren't heard before.
Exactly. And that was never really my intent when I started. It was more like, hey, let's do some fun, sexy stuff, make some money. But it's turned into this thing. There's obviously like other BBW performers who are really much on that kind of size acceptance platform. And I am more into the let's have fun platform.
Yeah.
So if I can do stuff that gets other people, regardless of their age or size, to then be more experimental and be open with saying, hey, you know what? I can be naked and I'm going to have fun, and I'm not going to think about like my fat roll or my cellulite or my stretch marks or whatever, because the girl on screen that I'm looking at is obviously a bigger girl and she's obviously having fun. So why can't I?
Yeah, it's so exciting. I find that so exciting. Let's see. So I saw on your website that you are staunchly against Measure B, and unfortunately it passed, which is really disappointing.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about like your views on that stuff?
Well, I think that you know, the thing about Measure B and Prop 35 is very similar. Prop 35 is the state proposition. Like Measure B is just for the county.
Yeah.
Prop 35 is for the entire state, and it's the human trafficking proposition. And in both cases, I think voters voted yes because of the way it was worded on the ballot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a lot of people really don't do a whole lot of research. They go, okay, I'm going to go in and I know who I'm voting for president, and I know the one or two things that are very important to me that I'm going to vote on. But like everything else is kind of like, eh. You know, so if you go into your ballot, your voting booth, and you're looking at the ballot and it says, you know, like Measure B, Safer Sex and Adult Industry Act, or, you know, a measure, you know, you're obviously going to say yes. Obviously you want people to have safe sex. And if you said no, then it's kind of like tantamount to saying, oh, I want all porn stars to get STDs and die.
Yeah.
So it's a logic-based decision.
No, totally.
And Proposition 35 was the same thing, is, you know, harsher penalties for human traffickers. Like, if you said no to that, logically, you'd be like, wow, you support human traffickers and sex traffickers, and how horrible are you as a human being to support that? But the reality is, like Prop 35, if I'm a sex worker, and I am, if I'm a porn performer, that technically makes me a sex worker.
Yeah.
Escorts, strippers, massage parlor girls, you know, dominatrixes, anybody who's kind of in a sex-based trade, that then uses the money to pay rent, pay bills, sends money home. Those people become human traffickers. And they have to be registered as human sex traffickers.
So
and we have to be registered as sex offenders. And that's the actual gist of Prop 35, and that's why so many of us in the industry were against it. Measure B is very similar. We already have monthly testing in place that, depending on the performer, depending on the company, you have to get tested anywhere between 14 to 28 days, but no wider than 28 days between tests. And we perform with other performers who also have been tested in that span. And the thing about Measure B is it's not just condoms, it's also dental dams, goggles, face masks, latex gloves. It treats a porn set like a hazmat scene.
Seriously.
And which, you know, if somebody has an STD, then it kind of does become a hazardous material scene. But the problem with making people use those barrier methods instead of saying, look, you know, it's up to you whether you want to perform with one or not. I mean, like Wicked is a condom-only company. There are companies that are like, you know, depending on the performer, if you want to wear one, wear one. If you don't want to wear one, don't. But we're always going to have testing on top of that.
Yeah.
The testing has always been kind of like the benchmark of what we always do. Making it mandatory to use the barrier methods, then you know, the scary part about that is that you're going to have like smaller amateur companies that work with performers who don't work all the time and don't make a huge profit. Suddenly go, well, I'm wearing a condom, so I didn't bother getting tested. And then the company is going, yeah, I'm okay with that. You know, or a girl saying, I'm okay with that because they want to make sure that they get paid that day. You know, and so so it kind of breeds this like potentially really scary situation of performers who might be continuing to work without testing. And so, you know, I've kind of like half jokingly, half seriously said on both like Facebook and Twitter, I'm just waiting for that one performer who's not working so much, that's looking for like an easy, you know, handful of cash, who's almost retired because they don't get that much work, you know, whatever reason it is for them to need a sudden amount of money, or just a greedy performer suddenly saying, oh, I got chlamydia, or I got gonorrhea, something that's easily fixable with medication, not like herpes or AIDS or anything like that, or HIV, and saying, oh, I contracted chlamydia or gonorrhea because of a broken condom, and suing LA County for that. I mean, I'm just waiting for that to happen because it wouldn't surprise me if it did.
Yeah.
And it's the nice thing is a lot of the cities inside LA County are starting to recognize what their voters voted for. So, like, Pasadena has actually made an official statement that any production company that does adult production that wants to come and shoot in Pasadena, we won't be enforcing Measure B. So, I'm hoping that other cities will follow suit. The other thing is, Measure B is something that is film permit based. So it really affects the larger companies that have to get film permits because they shoot in large studios or in homes with a lot of production vehicles. A lot of the amateur companies that don't bother getting a film permit are probably going to fly under the radar because they're just not going to be, I'm sure that the officials are going to be going from set to set enforcing Measure B. One of the first things they're probably going to do is go to the film permit office and go, okay, which productions are adult today?
Yeah. And
so if a company never bothered to get a film permit, then they're not going to be on the list of their route of where they're going to go check. So, unless you've got, a disgruntled employee, reporting where a film shoot is going on. And most of these companies, especially these days, they don't shoot every day.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be more of a headache for the city than they're saying it will be. And I'm hoping that there's already repeal efforts in the works. I'm hoping that it goes away.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to hear what people that are actually in the industry think about this stuff. And it's amazing that just... Yeah,
it kind of sucks if you have to wear a condom. The problem with that is what's next. If a city if a county can say, okay, anybody in film production has to wear barrier protection, then what's to prevent them from saying, oh, what's the next industry that gets hit with another kind of regulation? And when things get over-regulated, then people, one, don't have fun, and the quality of the production goes down.
Yeah.
And two, a lot of the companies will be like, well, I'm just going to go to another city or another county or another state, or like Hustler said, we're going to move to Hawaii or Mexico.
Yeah.
And then the city loses the revenue from that. Because it's not just us shooting and making porn. It's, if I make $1,000, then I'm going to spend that $1,000 on rent inside the county, on food, on groceries, on dining, on entertainment,
taxes,
and all of that will go away if the company that hires me decides to go to Florida or Georgia or Hawaii or Mexico. So it's not just the taxes; it's also just the regular expenses and the businesses that I support by spending my money, at those businesses. So.
Yeah.
When the Hollywood strikes happened, when I first got into porn, that's what happened, and LA really has still, 6 years later, never really recovered from all of the runaway businesses, from that.
Yeah. Oof, tough stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's still not sexy.
The opposite of sexy. Yeah. Well, let's talk about some sexy stuff.
Yeah.
So what have been your favorite movies to work on so far?
I've had specific companies where I looked at the project later and go, wow, I look like a porn star. Because there's porn. Mm-hmm. And, there's oh, I'm having sex and I kind of look pretty. And then there's, slow moving cameras and really nice lighting and the makeup took 2 hours and everything looks perfect. And I had worked with CJ Wright, who is no longer a performer in the business, but he really worshipped larger women. And so he said, I'm going to spend the money that I make doing mainstream film. He's a very tall, slender, with black performer with an 8-pack ab. He's just super, when he had been working, we couldn't reach him at really super early in the morning. He would get up at 4 in the morning and go jogging. He's such a workout junkie. But he had obviously made money doing mainstream film as a male performer and mainstream porn films, and would take the money that he would make and then produce this amazingly gorgeous BBW work. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of stuff that I was whoa, I look amazing. I don't look like that in real life because there's so much makeup on my face.